Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Turning Techies Into Leaders. And today I'm joined by a really special guest, Nachiket Mehta. He's the head of data and analytics engineering for global operations at Wayfair, and someone that I've worked with for the last couple of years during my time at Wayfair. So I'm really excited to bring him on. I'll start off with Nachiket. To me, when I first met you, one of the things that impressed me the most is your ability to sell a vision. I think, the messaging that you were using all the way through our time together at Wayfair was very compelling. How did you how did you develop that skill set?
So it's a good question. Hey, Pierre, I'm really excited to be here. It's an interesting question. As most techies who start in the tech world, like they are mostly involved in like what solution they are delivering, and that's it, right? That's like small bubble, and they feel that they are there with the latest technology they are evolving and all that. But as you kind of grow up in your career, what matters more is what impact you are making on the business at the end of the day, right? And then selling that impact via a vision and strategy drives a lot of adoption of the work that you are doing with your team. So that's kind of the mantra, right? And there are a lot of like books we can return about it. There are one of the ones that I really like is like just starting with the why, right? Like
Simon Sinek, right? Start with why.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like where before you get into the weeds of the how and the what you are building and all, right? Like what matters is the why, right? And like I'll give you an example that we work together on Wayfair, right? You are many people, many techies or non-techies or analysts are working on delivering or getting better metrics out there, right? Like, hey, we have order to delivery or whatever metrics, let's just get better quality data going in, building that metrics better. Let's ask the why, right? What's the why behind it? Oh, we are doing that so that our WBR can be better performed and we make better decisions. Okay, why we need to do that? We need to do that because it contributes back to like our CEO's broader vision of performing or delivering perfect order at scale, right? Okay, why do we do that? Because we need to have a clear impact on customers when they are expecting something from Wayfair. They want that delivery, and then that feeling of being home is like the Wayfair as a brand is sold, right? So when you kind of traverse through this, that why really motivates a lot of people, right? So I think that's what I've always believed in. Now, your other part of the question was talking to different audience, right? So there is a non-technical audience and there is a technical audience, right? Like your own team members, right? They need to be motivated about your vision. So there's a lot of different things. Like ultimately what matters at the foundation is understand what others, your audience wants to hear, and communicate and craft your message so that they can understand. You meet where they are instead of kind of trying to articulate your vision in the form that you have developed.
Yeah, I got maybe two follow-ups on that. I think you did something, whether or not you noticed or not, but you did a double why, which I think is something that doesn't happen very often in tech, right? You go, well, why are we doing that? They go, because of ABC. And they go, oh, okay. And then they leave and they go and build that because they got their answer. But you did something quite interesting, which is, okay, but why, right? Getting that further step, because I think in those instances, you're actually going to get a better reason than that first why. We're doing it because we want to improve. So you said the example of like perfect orders at scale. Okay, great. That makes sense, of course. But why is that critical? So I think that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, there is an interesting thing about the asking why. You can't get into the details, the real wins, until you ask the why question 5 times. That's when you will really get to the bottom of that. I read somewhere and it really resonated with.
Yeah, it does. And I think as a tech individual, you get that first why, you get the really broad reason. You get that second why, you're getting a little bit more detail. And by the fifth why, you're really trying to actually understand that, hey, it's going to increase revenue by X. It's going to decrease costs. It's going to improve our whatever, metric that truly matters to us in that space. So I think it's something that is something you should take away, right? The 5 whys. Let me kind of maybe pull on something else that you said. You said you cater your messaging to tech and non-tech audiences. So how do you cater your message between the two? Because it is true, you can't just go to a tech person with a complete vague business problem, and vice versa. You can't go to the business with the nuances of how you're going to build out your airflow, stream. Like they don't really care. So how do you navigate that message?
Yeah, I think it really like if you're talking to a business people who they really care about is like how they are making an impact to Wayfair's business or growing the revenue or saving the cost or whatnot, right? Technology for them is an enabler of that. There may be many other alternatives they can achieve the same goal. If not with technology, then maybe other human alternatives they can still achieve that goal, right? But why technology would expedite that saving or that goal at the end of the day, like they need to understand that aspect of it, right? So kind of clarifying that vision and strategy in the simple terms, right? Even using like simple jargons and not tech jargons that most of the people are used to do. Like that's a key point. Kind of that those kind of little things that matters a lot, right? Like also active listening, right? You can't build a vision and strategy without understanding their needs, like asking those whys and starting with the whys, right? So now you understand the problems well by active listening, then you can craft your message in response to their pain points. And that's where it would resonate better with them, because now they feel that you are addressing their pain points instead of just creating a nice vision, which, yeah, great, I agree, but how do you solve my problem? Like that question is still not answered. So that's a business aspect of it. Now, again, technology side of things, you can't tell them that, no, we have to do so and so things because it's going to impact your business quite well. What many techies care about is, what am I getting out of it? Like, am I working on the latest technologies? Am I working on like the cutting edge thing? What am I learning? Am I building my resume? Am I challenged enough? And if so, how am I going to be learning new technologies and things like that? So I think that also matters a lot. Where we have built programs where I set up a goal for my team where 100% of them should be GCP certified. The first time, like when we introduced GCP as our cloud provider, like 4 years back. And my team was one of the first teams to be 100% GCP certified. But while doing that, there was an interior motive where now we build a cutting edge solution to deliver this like industry cutting thing. And now I have a manpower who is motivated to work on something hands-on. And now we kind of craft that vision to say, okay, we are building this. This is how it's going to impact the business. So now they have their own vested interest, and now they also kind of gets buy-in from the bigger end goal of what they are contributing back to the company.
Yeah, and in that instance, you're doing two things, right? You're building a very strong workforce for yourself and your team and the company, and then you're also showing that we're willing to invest in the individual's development as well.
Right.
I think you touched on a little bit something about like working on the cutting edge solution, working on the newest tech. I mean, there's eventually a trade-off where constantly shifting techs is a lot of work and maintenance. How do you juggle that as a leader, and how did you yourself juggle that when you were earlier in your career on cool new tech that I need to learn versus, hey, I could also really showcase my skills by delivering business value? Because, I mean, as we've mentioned a little bit earlier, executives don't care if you're working on that tech or that tech or that tech. They just want the outcome. So how do you navigate that to stay current and still deliver that value?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, a good question as well. So one thing, right, I believe that everyone should be a lifelong learner. They should always keep learning what's happening out there in the industry. Even though it's not directly related to you, it will impact you sooner or later, right? You see Gen AI or AI in general, right? Like it came in 1950s, right? Like there were like limited set of people who were using it. We are all using it for so long, right? Like think about Siri or chatbots and all that. They are version of an AI in general, right? And machine learning algorithms built into the photo apps or whatever, right? But now the Gen AI as a specialized version of deep learning kind of created that buzz, and now it has like a direct consumer.
The mainstream, right? It hit the chasm and went over the chasm into the mainstream.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. But for somebody like you and I who have been part of the data and analytics industry in general, like we've been following that trend for so long, right? Like it's just that when somebody asks question like, hey, how are you coping up with this like new craze and all? It's not a new craze, right? We have been learning about it on the side, and we have done tons of stuff. We just have to, ChatGPT made it so mainstream, and now it took like less than few weeks for Google and Meta to follow, right? Like if they wouldn't be doing that, like it would take them years to kind of compete with that, right? So I think that lifelong learner, everyone should be a lifelong learner. How you keep up with that, like from leadership perspective, it's also like, what's your leadership style, right? Like I think many leaders are like doers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be like, we had like manager doers or director doers and all that, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to get into the weeds, understand it, and now they can kind of create like more challenging vision in a way, right? Use all your senses. That's what I usually say. Like you're hands-on, or somebody may be a thinker, right? Like they're strategic thinkers
Mm-hmm.
and they learn a lot about it, and now they are saying, okay, how do I leverage this new tech to impact the business and kind of mix both worlds? There may be certain things who are like visionary and they kind of think about certain things by talking to people, right? I think people plays a key role in this, right? You can't read everything from books and all that. If you talk to, they say like you are an average of 5 closest people to you. Decide what your inner circle is, and now you learn a lot from those individuals too. So that's what, like, I would say, like everyone should be a lifelong learner, and everyone should be, then like it just automatically gives you that thought process that, okay, yeah, how about we do this, right? Small ideas, build on small ideas,
Mm-hmm.
prove it, MVP, and then take it further up, right? You can't build the chat GPT just like on day one, or just like as an initial idea that came up.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's this sometimes this pressure in data and analytics, especially, I mean, to chase the coolest new technologies. And I think you just touched on something there around, test it out, trial it, learn on the side. How have you navigated that landscape yourself? Like, how do you decide what matters, what doesn't matter, when to dabble, when not to dabble, when to introduce something into the business and when to let it lie for a while? Because if you introduce it too early, it might fail or be very expensive to implement as well. How have you navigated them?
But while learning from your mistakes. Okay. I mean, that's the fastest way to learn and grow, right? But I think you you learn from your mistakes for sure. You have to just jump into the water to start dabbling. You can't just stay on the shore and keep reading the books about how to swim, right? Like you have to jump in and do it and all, right? Um, then obviously I've made mistakes. I have like my own startups that like we did the industry research and all that, and then we jumped in, but we were early in compared to the market, right? And then we had to shut it down because of XYZ reasons. And then like 2 3 years later, that industry evolved, right? The
Yeah.
timing was not right, even though idea and innovation was there. But in general, I would say, right, again, small prototypes, when you are learning uh, and seeing around, reading around, or talking to people, you realize what are those applications, and then you kind of apply those applications, see if prove the value, right?
Yeah.
Looks like you are making a tangible impact, and then kind of go from there one step at a time.
Hmm. Oh, that's very good. I want to take you back earlier into your career. So obviously you started entry level at some organization, right? And you worked your way up. Um, how did you work your way up the ladder? How did you make that leap to the next roles? What sort of advice were you given or can you recommend today to help people make that next step in their career?
Yeah. So I started, I was always passionate about data, like
Hmm.
from the day when I was studying, right? I was doing my bachelor's, and then even when I was doing my master's, I specialized on the data. When it was Master of Computer Science, and I had a good handle on just computer science in general. And like I played roles where I was software engineers, but data was something I was always passionate about. Obviously, during my career, I've built a lot of applications myself, like using software in general, but they are more data intensive applications. So, and then traditionally it was more traditional database stuff, and then data warehouse and big data came in, then cloud, and now data mesh or what, right? But that was something that always kind of uh, kept me going as a passion that I followed, right? I got fortunate now that in the current era that it really, like, data is a foundation to a lot of stuff that's happening in the tech industry anyways. The other thing also that was interesting was I always asked that question, the why, right? Like
Hmm.
if I was doing something, I wanted to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing, and then what it is contributing ultimately to the company or to the customer supplier, who are your like end users. The other thing the other strength is that, again, limitation or a strength, but English is not my first native language, right? So obviously there was that restriction or that bar when I was trying to articulate things, and because of not having so many vocabulary in the thing, I was forced to kind of use the basic English words to explain more complex things because I
Which
did
often
not
is
know
even
what.
better. Yeah,
Which
even
worked
better.
out better, right? Which worked out better because by teacher I didn't use those complex jargons, and then
Mhm.
that I could connect very easily to the business counterparts for whom I was building the solution. So I would take that strength and then the strength of learning, constantly learning and leveraging technology, which helped me get into a managerial role much sooner than later in my career because I kind of like as a from hands-on individual to a managerial role who is like put on in front of the stakeholders pretty soon, and now you are talking to the leaders and kind of understand how they are
Mhm.
thinking about the business in general. And now you kind of take back to your like foundation of your technical degree and say, hey, how can we solve these problems? Also being like earlier in my career, played various roles at a consulting company, right? More
Mhm.
professional services and all. So I worked on many different industries. So I got to learn different aspects of the business and how the technical solution applies. So that also helped a lot. And obviously, like your manager or your leaders or your mentors play a key role as well, right?
Yeah.
So I found good mentors. I got a lot of good feedback with them, like what works, what's not working. Sometimes I did not get enough opportunity, and then I decided that am I stuck here? Like, what my
Mhm.
career goal look like? And then sometimes I was not expecting, and I got such a excellent leaders who just pushed me up, right, without me expecting it, right? They saw the potential in me,
Yeah.
versus I went to them and asking for it. So a lot of factors played in, but at least keep doing the work, stick to the foundations that I talked about, the why,
Yeah.
the learning, and all, then solving the problems and all, and that kept helped me going.
Yeah, I think you also touched on one again with the concept of like active listening, right? I think it's the why part for sure, but like, so how much would you say that this focus on the business and solving the business problems has helped you as well?
Um, so it has helped a lot where you show result after results after results, right? Like you build that credibility about your brand, your image that, yeah,
Hmm.
if if this bigger solution is given to this individual, I can expect the results out. But not only that, I can expect something more on top, right? I think just building that credibility will be true. I know your listeners are like really like techies who are trying to grow
Hmm.
and all, but I think results and the delivery matters, right? You can't just play network and kind of talk to your stakeholders and all that, but not deliver results. The
Yeah.
results and delivery is given. You have to do that. All the other things are additional to that, which will help you grow further in your career.
Yeah. Use that foundation that you have and then add on top of it by delivering that value. Oh, okay. Look, cognizant of time, I think this has been, we've gone in a bunch of different areas. I think if I was to summarize it, ask a lot of whys, keep learning, really kind of truly deliver that value back to the stakeholders by understanding their needs. I think that's kind of what you're kind of saying. Is there anything that we've missed today that you wanted to touch on that might help someone trying to unstick themselves in their career or become a leader in the tech space?
Um, thing was so I would say, I mean, ask yourself what really you enjoy doing at the end of the day. Sometimes like, and then you have to follow your strengths, right? There's a strength finder assessments that happens and all that, right? And the core of that is follow your strengths. Don't get too stuck on the weaknesses. I think that's one thing that I've followed, and then I have used those strengths to kind of mature it further. But sometimes, like, despite of like proving your best, you deliver results, you have good business impact and
Mm.
all, and you may still not get recognition. It's just maybe you are in the wrong circle. Maybe it's time to look around, or you have the wrong mentor or leaders who are like
Mhm.
not supporting you, right? I've been fortunate that I have got those leaders and mentors, but I think look around and ask yourself if that doesn't help. Maybe then again, not saying that improve on the weaknesses, but like sometimes the messaging also matters a lot, right? Like how
Mhm.
you sell your stuff,
Yeah.
whether it's a vision or a solution, like vision to values. However, I think that matters a lot. Other thing that we didn't touch about is emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotional
Yeah.
intelligence plays as a key role in this, right? So understand, connect, empathy, and understanding people aspect of it, like the data mesh thing that we've been working
Yep.
on. There's the huge socio-technical aspect, and technology is easy to solve, but the culture change, the people change, that's the
Right.
toughest piece, right? You would anticipate that it's like a year of your project timeline to implement this, but that turns into 3 years without you realizing that aspect of it. So don't ignore that as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that definitely isn't considered in tech, right? We think, oh, it's an easy solution, but you've got change management, you've got the ego, you've got the prior history you may not be aware of, you've got this context you may be missing that you just don't have the full picture. So it's critical. But thank you so much for joining today. I mean, I've learned a lot from this chat. I know people will as well. Thanks for sharing your path and the way that you've operated. And again, yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye.